Hey everybody, welcome back to Reluctantly Productive. I'm F Baby, and it has been a hot minute. I have a quick video here showing a farming route in Gold Coast to take advantage of the Guilds and Glory event. We're going to start at the Anvil Way Shrine, and then we're going to just run around this area up here that has no real way shrines. There's not a lot of reason to be in this area if you're not doing quests. So you'll see that I'm actually at the start of peak time when I was farming this route, and I didn't run into too many people. There's a few people you'll notice in the video who are actively farming in the same route and zone as I am. But overall, I didn't have to compete with anybody for resources. I did end up getting a few boxes. I ran this route for half an hour. And like most of my videos, this one's going to be fast forwarded for most of the footage, but at this point you should get a gist of the route that we're going to be running. So yeah, this is a good route because like I said, it's no population. Nobody comes this way because there's nothing to do up here unless you're doing quests. And even then, most of the area is just flavorful. It's not really necessary for a lot of what's going on in the zone. I think for the most part, people are probably in this event focusing on farming in Rothgar, because if you find a treasure chest there, you can get Briarheart gear. Briarheart gear is still somehow valuable. I don't really understand, but whatever. You also probably see a lot more people farming in Hughesbane because everybody and their mother, has myself included, has a video out about how Hughesbane, not Hughesvane. I think that's a different zone, different book, different game. But yes, Hughesbane has a great platinum route. You can find a video to it on my channel here, but it is probably farm to hell. I haven't gone and checked because even when it's not zone specific, when there's just Explorers Weekend or something like that, people tend to farm the hell out of that route in Hughesbane. I also don't like Hughesbane as much for general farming because it's a lot of cliffs. I think you could do okay in Rothgar, and I'm hoping to get another video out this coming week showing you a route that I don't think very many people will run, where you can still make a decent chunk of change and get lots of resources. Yeah, so it's been a while since I've made one of these videos, and my bad, sorry. Thank you people who have left kind comments. I've just been really distracted with a lot of other things going on in life. ESO hasn't really been a priority for me the last few months, and that's unfortunate, but I'm planning on getting back into it. I'm excited about the launch of the new chapter. I'm not somebody who is dying for spellcrafting, so that information doesn't really do much for me. I don't think it's going to be much of a system because I don't think that ZOS can balance anything, and I don't think it's going to add flavor to... I don't think it's going to add the flavor that people think it's going to add anyway to their characters. I think there's this idea about spellcrafting that it's going to be like, oh, my guy has some sort of tie to nature or to the green or something like that, and so all of my stuff is going to be flavored X, Y, or Z way. Or my guy's a super genius who uses like a water fireball. But I don't think any of that's going to be what happens. What we're going to see is now your spell does this type of damage or something along those lines. And I just don't think it'll be I don't think it's going to be as impactful. It's fun. It's great to add customization options. I can't shit on that. And I don't want to take anybody's fun away, but I'm just not super hyped about it personally. But either way, I like Valenwood, and I like from what I understand, the concept of the story. So it should be cool. And I do that they're focusing more on quality of life stuff. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a fun chapter either way. So this is the end of the ESO part of this video. I'm trying something new this year. I want to do something a little bit different. If you only care about the farming, you can skip pretty much to the end. It'll be the last 2 minutes. I might put a time code in, I might not. It really doesn't. Or if you feel like you've already gotten enough information about how this route is going to be run, then I think you can just click away. I know that's bad YouTubing to be like, oh, okay, don't watch to the end, but really you probably don't need to. You've got it figured out. This year, 2024, I started reading more. I decided I was actually going to try to go back and read more books this year. I'm not one of those people who likes to brag about how many books I've read or haven't read, because I think that for the most part, when people say they've read 300, 400, 500 books in a year, my main question is, did you get anything out of it? And for some people, yeah, they have. They can actually remember and talk about the plots, but I think a lot more people, it's a scoreboard thing. And for me personally, that feels like the wrong way to go about reading. But I also say that as somebody who has read like 10 books in the last 2 years. So I think that there's a medium ground between reading too much and reading basically nothing. I started reading some classics off of a list that I'll have linked in the description. The list has some issues. I don't agree with the number 8 most important book of all time being the Bible, but that is probably a little bit of personal bias. I also think it's a little bit cheating to be like, oh, all of Shakespeare's plays count as number 36. That's weird to me. But I picked some books off that list. I've been working my way through them. I've also read some contemporary stuff that isn't on these all-time classics lists because if you only read classics, I think that your brain breaks a little bit. You start saying like hitherfore and whenceforth and things like that, and you sound like a crazy person. One of the books towards the bottom of the top 100 is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I think that book is maybe being misremembered as being a classic. This is a time where I think that maybe the movie influenced how people feel about the book because I've seen the movie. I've seen it twice, but not for years. And I've never read the book before. I actually had very little expectation going into this book. I didn't know what it was about. And I blew through it in about 5 days. I think that if you're somebody who has read a lot, it's a relatively easy read, but it's slow to start. The story is told from the point of view of the chief, the big Native American character in the movie. He is actually our narrator and POV author, and he is an unreliable narrator in the sense that he is somebody who's been the victim of both electroshock therapy and overprescription of drugs, I guess is the right way to say it. And he is not necessarily telling the whole truth. It's not that he's lying, it's just that he's seeing things differently. He does a thing where he gets confused about where he is at a given moment. You spend a lot of the first couple chapters hearing him talk about fog and machinery in the walls, etc. And it's all basically a metaphor for his brain being drugged out and not being able to focus or look at what's going on. Obviously, the story kicks into high gear, and really the brunt of what's in the book takes place when an inmate named McMurphy, played by Jack Nicholson in the movie, comes in. And the story ends with McMurphy getting lobotomized, and then the chief snuffs him out, basically smothers him with a pillow, and then breaks out and goes free, becoming the one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. I think it's a slow book. I don't know it's necessarily one I'd recommend, but I do want to give a huge negative to it because it feels like in this book they went beyond what was even historically accurate to a point. It almost feels like the joke I've made several times since completing it is it feels as though they were writing the book and he would finish a couple pages and go back and say like, oh wow, I haven't said anything misogynistic or racist. I should probably add that in. And that's how the book felt the entire time. It gets to a point where you start saying to yourself, like, okay, we get it. We get that these people have this view of the world. And I don't know if that's a fault of the author. I don't know anything about him. I'm a big proponent of death of the author. So I don't know anything about this person who wrote the book. I don't know if this is how he viewed life in general, or if this was written in a sense of concern that he was exposed to the mental health industry at the time and decided to write a book exposing how bad it was. But it feels as though every page, if not once a page, multiple times a page, had something racist or sexist on it. And like I said, at a certain point, it goes past the that's just how it was back then to straight up being insulting, as if he needed to remind himself every page, oh yeah, also I don't like women. So yeah, anyway, I want to put little mini book reviews in these farming videos because I don't, most people won't talk to me about this sort of thing. You can probably guess why. But yeah, overall, I give One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest probably 2 stars. I don't think it's a particularly important book. I'm surprised it's on a list of the 100 most important books, but it's there, and I guess I'm wrong in that. I will say I saw a great review, and it was on Storygraph, but they called out that because this book was written in the 60s, it doesn't come across as like the firebrand revolutionary expose type book it might have been, and instead reads as a piece of historical fiction. And I think in that aspect, it does lose a little bit of its pizzazz. But overall, I think it's a book that's worth skipping for the most part. I don't think that there's much of any redeeming value in it. I usually, if you've ever listened to an episode of our podcast, I do try to find, I recommend this movie if you're fans of X, Y, or Z. I don't know who to recommend this book for. I don't know that it's actually a book that is really, I don't know that it's pertinent to today's day and age. I think it is a good example of writing from the standpoint of somebody who is not necessarily reliable. And I think more importantly, this is something that I've talked about with Ringo, my podcast partner, but I think that there is a misunderstanding of what unreliable narrators are. I think that a lot of people see an unreliable narrator as a way for the author to just lie to the audience for no reason other than the fact that he is an unreliable narrator or she is an unreliable narrator and therefore I can. And so in this book, it makes sense why the narrator is unreliable. And it's from years, like I said, of abuse at the hands of the mental health system. And so in that way, I guess there's some good writing tips to be picked up in here. Some writing that you could, styles and suggestions that you could incorporate into your own writing if it's something that you wanted to do. But I think that you can actually get all of this better from most Chuck Palahniuk books, and you get it with a lot less objectionable shit. It doesn't feel like Chuck Palahniuk goes back a page to make sure to remind us that he hates women or something like that. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying that's what the author felt like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It really felt like this guy had an issue with women and just needed to make sure he included that on every page. Then he does that thing that all bad D&D players do, where they're like, well, it's not me, it's my character. And you're like, okay. Anyway, that's my review for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. As I make these farming videos in the future, I will be adding book reviews for things I've read. I think next I'll talk about Tess Gerritsen's Spy Coast. That was a pretty fun read, something much more contemporary. But yeah, here we are at the end of the route now. As you can see, we gathered a pretty good collection of stuff. And as you saw through the video, I really didn't have much issue with people jumping on my resources or routes. There's almost no competition, and this was right at the start of peak time. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I promise I'll be a little bit more consistent with these this year. And have a good one, everybody. See ya.